Afternoon and welcome to another segment of Speak Your Mind. I'm Jackie Spate, your host for today. And in studio with us, we have our electoral commissioners, Mr. Larry Thomas and Father David Arms. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, we're just going to get right into it. Pre-polling starts tomorrow. And there are a number of Fijians who are still confused, not to mention the various theories as to why you're holding pre-polling. Can you first clarify the reasons behind pre-polling and who's eligible for it?
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Well, pre-polling really is for those who live in the very remote areas of the country and also in the maritime areas. And given that the election, the polling is really for one day, with the results to be released shortly thereafter, we need to do this for the next week and a half to enable those who live in the most remote areas to vote, and the ballot boxes come back in before the polling day on the 17th. So really, it's for those living in remote areas who won't be able to vote on the polling day.
Okay, then, and for those living in the central area, are they able to do pre-polling?
No. For the central areas, they vote on the 17th. Okay. This is really for those. It's in the interior and in the maritime areas.
Okay. Does this
it's mainly for the those two areas, the maritime and the remote areas. But there may also be some localities where there's not enough people to have a proper polling station. So it's too distant to get to the polling station, so they're pre-polled.
Would this also include those who are part of emergency services?
Yes. For the for the emergency services, there's also the postal voting.
Okay.
So I think for the essential services, emergency services, they most likely will do postal voting.
Okay.
Yeah. And because you have postal voting, you have pre-poll voting, and then you have polling voting on the day itself.
Right. Okay. So when does pre-polling end?
On the 15th of September, pre-polling ends.
That's just a few days out from the 17th.
That's right.
Okay, then. So,
but each place, of course, has its own time for pre-polling. So in some places, they start tomorrow, and that'll be it.
Okay.
There's each station has its each polling station has its scheduled time throughout the country and all districts of the country.
You'll be announcing this.
The announcements have already started, Jackie, on the pre-poll. They've also been advertised. The pre-polling stations and the times have been advertised in all of the media, both broadcast and on print. Radio stations, both FBC and CFL, have been making the announcements. Now, as Father mentioned, pre-polling, of course, starts tomorrow, and some station of polling venues have a day. Some go for 2 days, depending on the numbers. And for the central, eastern, western, and divisions and the other divisions, and but by the 15th, all pre-polling will end.
Okay. My next question for you is: people who are registered for pre-polling, if they do not make it in time for pre-polling, for whatever reason they've missed out, will they be able to go and vote at the polling center on the 17th?
No. They've already got their polling station, and if it's a pre-poll, then they have to vote there.
Okay.
And if they happen to be out of the village or community centre,
they've missed it.
That's right.
And the same holds also for a postal vote, in the sense that if a person has opted for a postal vote, they can't suddenly decide, I think I'll go and vote.
Right.
If they're registered as a postal vote, they must do a postal
vote.
And if they went actually to the polling station, they'd find their name had already been crossed off, because those who have registered for postal voting, their names are crossed off the list of their station.
Okay, then. Okay. So yesterday, the first postal ballot was received. Yes. First vote for 2014 was received by the Elections Office yesterday. And as you mentioned earlier, postal voting also applies to people in the maritime zone as well, just for them. And it all ends on the 15th as well for postal voting too. Yes. Okay, so when and
the
how?
The postal votes will be received up until the 17th.
Okay.
It's a matter
that's right, no later than the 17th.
They've got to get in by polling day.
Okay.
By 6 p.m. Anything coming after that,
will be disqualified.
So the elections office has gone to considerable trouble to make sure that people get their postal votes quickly and that they can be returned quickly. Yep. Those overseas in particular are being operated through DHL, and so there's...
So what's the process with postal voting? Where do they go to?
Well, it's sent to them. So everybody who's registered for postal voting will have received a letter from the Fiji Elections Office informing them that they've registered. Right. And then, as you would have probably seen on the news in the weekend, the ballot papers for postal voting have begun to be dispatched to all the postal voters, in not only in the country but also overseas.
Okay, then. Just the final question before we go to a quick break. When and how do the postal ballot votes get counted? And will it be on September 17th as well, along with all the other votes once the polls close?
The votes will be brought to the county centre, but the actual authorisation for the postal votes in particular, one has to check first that the person who has voted is general postal voter. So that may start on the night of the 17th. Right. But although there's a provisional count for all those votes that are cast on September 17, there's no provisional count for those votes, the postal votes or the pre-poll votes. They will be start to count it on the 18th.
On the 18th. Yeah. Okay, for postal votes.
Postal and pre-poll.
And pre-polling. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for clarifying that. We're going to go to a quick break right now, but stay with us. We'll have more after this. FM, Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to the show. In studio with us today, we have the two electoral commissioners, Mr. Larry Thomas and Father David Arms. Now, my next question for you. A lot has been reported in the news. A lot of discussions are taking place on social media sites about what transpired between the Electoral Commission and the Supervisor of Elections, which ended up in court, as we all know. Would either of you be able to clarify exactly what happened? Because, to be honest, a lot of Fijians were pretty shocked as to what happened during that weekend. There was just so much going on. And what does it mean now? Would you be able to clarify? And what does it mean now for the Electoral Commission moving forward? Okay.
Well, thanks, Jackie. Yes, I think it was a bit of a shock for the country and for a lot of people when that happened. It was a matter, a legal matter. The decision of the Electoral Commission was supposed to have been made by 4 o'clock, the decisions on the objections and the review of candidates. Right. And the Supervisor of Elections, by 4 o'clock, when no decision had been forthcoming, and I think a little later, decided to go with his own list as opposed to the list of the Electoral Commission and the decisions of the Electoral Commission, because there were two names there that were in contention. And so he went ahead and in doing so disregarded the decision of the Electoral Commission. Right. And so this was a legal matter, and it's really a matter for interpretation, because in the electoral decree it says 4 p.m. And our interpretation was that the day could go till about midday midnight, the day. So yeah, and then we appealed the decision. It went to court, and the court overruled our decision, of course, and went with the decision.
So that was the only delay from your side, is that you thought you had time till midnight.
Well, I mean, that was open because we had our decision by around about 2 o'clock. Right. We needed to ensure that we had all the details, correct. And there's a whole process of clarifying certain points.
Okay. One of the stipulations of the decree is not just to inform of the decision, but to do so with written reasons. And so it was getting all that correspondence in order that took a bit of time. But so we weren't particularly hurrying for two reasons: that we wanted to make sure it was done properly, right, and secondly that we thought we had up until later in the evening. We did want to get out as quick as possible, but we thought we had right up until midnight.
Okay.
And the persons who had objected or reviewed they had a right to get an explanation from us. And, we had to ensure that our reasons had legal, the legal interpretation was correct.
Yes, of course.
For fear of any repercussion after that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, then. So what is the relationship now between the Electoral Commission and the Supervisor of Elections, the Elections Office?
The relationship has always been fine.
Right.
I think one of the things that brought to question was, because of this, people felt that there was a rift between the Commission.
Felt something was
No,
going on.
and as the chair, Mr. Chen Banyang, mentioned, there are disagreements,
right?
And sometimes we agree to disagree,
Yes.
and this is only normal. We have a very good relationship. At the end of the day, as I always say, the show must go on.
That's right.
The election is much bigger than any of us, and that's the important thing that has to go on. We have differences of views, of interpretation, which is fine. And I think it's very healthy to have this. But as far as our relationship goes, it's fine. And there's no rift that some people may think that's happened. We have to work together. Right. It's important.
As the chairman emphasised, even shortly after the decision was made, we work together. We keep going on to bring the elections to a fair and free and fair conclusion.
And I'm sure with all that, it's definitely reassuring the public that the credibility of the electoral process is intact.
Absolutely. and that's important. That's really important for the public to know that. Because at the end of the day, as Father mentioned, we have to have free and fair and credible elections.
Right. Yeah. Okay, then. Wonderful. My next question for you is, now we all know that there are 50 seats in this new parliament. How will the seats be allocated for opposition and the government? Will it be equally divided, or do you have other rules or methods that decide allocation, taking into account that there could be a possibility of a party winning 30 seats or more?
Yes, the allocation of seats is such that each party will be allotted a particular number of seats. Let's say it could be 30, and another party 10, another 7, 8 or something. There's all sorts of possibilities. What is important is that there's no sort of straight line between government and opposition. That isn't decided by the election itself. Okay. If, of course, a party gets more than half, that is, gets more than 25, then it clearly has a majority and will most likely form the government. If it does not, well, then there will be need for a coalition, and that will be subject to discussion. The Constitution determines how long that discussion is. It's not in some countries, forming a coalition can take a very long time, but our Constitution limits it quite severely. But it's up to the parties who are elected, no matter how many seats they've got there, to work it out together who's the government. And those who are not government are, of course, in the opposition.
Okay, so after the counting and allocations of seats are completed, now let's just imagine here that there's no outright majority. How much room is there for political parties to negotiate and form a coalition? Do you have a deadline for them? Is there a deadline that's given for this?
We don't provide it, but it's in the Constitution, yes.
Okay.
So they'll be aware of that, and will have to make their decisions accordingly.
Okay, so then they'll just refer to the Constitution there. But what is your role? There's no role of the Electoral Commission with this.
We have no role for that. We simply allot the number of seats each party gets. After that, the negotiations in Parliament, that's their role.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll discuss this further. Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to the show. We're in studio with our electoral commissioners, Mr. Larry Thomas and Father David Arms. Just getting back into it, earlier you had said that with regards to the negotiations for parties to form a coalition, you don't have any say whatsoever with that. So just to clarify, you don't have any say. Does the Supervisor of Elections have a say as well?
No. Once the seats have been allotted, the Electoral Commission writes down those who've been elected and returns the writ with those names on to the president. And those are the members of parliament.
Right.
Who forms coalitions, who forms government, that's up for those politicians, those 50 people. They decide that among themselves, as has been the case in other electoral systems. In other electoral systems. This system is, we finish our task at that point. So the only thing is, if there is a dispute, there is a court of disputed returns, and that is handled by a judge in that court, and it could be the case that he would call for information from the supervisor or from us to look at a particular case. But in principle, we're finished after the names are given to the president.
Right. So if they cannot come to an agreement amongst themselves, then they take it to court. That's just it.
It would depend on them whether it goes to court. I think the Constitution makes it clear that they're expected to have it done within a certain period of time. And after that, it may be that it would hardly be the case, but it could be the case, I think, where another election could be called. But presumably they would come to some arrangement before that, being aware of the cost of that and the fact that we just had an election there, that they need to form some sort of coalition and government for stability of the country.
Okay, my next question for you is, now, after tabulating the valid votes, you come to a conclusion that there were 500,000 valid votes. So for any party to be considered for a seat in parliament, this including independent candidates, there's a 5% threshold, 1/20th of the valid votes.
Correct.
What if they don't meet the 5% threshold? Where do their votes go to, especially for the independent candidates? What happens to their votes if it doesn't meet the 5% threshold? Because these are valid votes, huh? Where does it go to?
They don't go anywhere.
So that's it. It's just
those candidates,
that
independent candidate or the party. If a party doesn't reach the threshold, they're out as well. And the independent candidate, if he or she doesn't reach the threshold, then that person is out.
Okay.
And the votes are not counted and don't contribute anything towards the allocation of seats.
So
the determination of the percentages, the determination of the seats will be figured out from the other votes only, not where their votes won't figure.
So even if it's somebody standing for a party and it's valid votes, but he didn't meet the threshold, the people who voted for him, their votes are not counted. It's immediately
not only the independent candidate.
The party.
In the party, in the independent candidate, it's like that.
Okay.
But other candidates, they could get a much lower figure. It's only the party has to reach the threshold. So there's a lot of people in the party, and so some people could actually get only not that many votes compared, say, to the independent candidate. But the party will bring them in. Somebody in that party may have got a huge number of votes.
Right.
But that very popular person will have brought in some others who have quite a lower figure.
Well, you've just clarified that for me. What is the reason for the threshold? Can you simply answer for the sake of our listeners who are still confused with this process? There's still some people who are a little confused about it. If you can just explain further about the threshold. The reason for it?
The reason for it is that in principle it's a proportional system, and so you would like to think that everybody get their due proportion. But in practice it has been found with proportional systems that if you allow that to happen, you sometimes have quite a number of very small parties or a number of candidates, so that you have a very splintered parliament. So if it comes then to forming a coalition, you might find that a party's only got, say, 20 seats and it has to get another 5 or 6. And then that can be a dickens of a job trying to negotiate. And even if they get a coalition together, they spend half their time in government trying to keep the coalition together. Because if they make some policy, then some independent or some small party will say, no, we don't like that, and we'll pull out of the coalition. So the reason is to provide stability to the government. That's why, because if you have too many with like that in there, it can provide an unstable government. There may indeed be need for coalitions, but if it becomes too splintered, then it becomes very difficult.
Okay. You mentioned earlier the Court of Disputed Returns. Now, any issues over the validity of votes, the counting process, it goes back to the Court of Disputed Returns. Are you able to explain what this is exactly?
Somebody would need to bring a case. Yeah? It's not that sort of that.
And this can be from anyone.
Yes, as defined within the decree, there are some limits, but those persons who would want to bring the case, that they would bring it to that court.
Okay. Now, just another question for you. What happens when there is an equal division? Basically, two parties have qualified to be in parliament. They both have won equal votes, and the other parties have not qualified, meaning they did not obtain the number of votes above the threshold. What is the role of the Electoral Commission in deciding what to do next? Two parties, 50-50.
So they get 25 seats each. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's not our role to do anything.
It's up. It comes down to them again.
We give them those 25 names for that party A, 25 names for party B. They go into the president, and then they have to figure out how they're going to operate.
Are you able to advise the public on how long the counting process is going to take after the 17th, once the polls close at 6 o'clock?
The counting process in the polling stations will be over 2 or 3 hours in some, because the polling stations are of different sizes. So a big one that had the maximum of about 500 might take longer. And any of them could take longer if in the process they make some mistake and have to go back. Yeah? That's why they'll be slow and deliberate about it. They don't want to make mistakes, but everybody can make a mistake. And if they find it a mistake, they'll have to go and recount. But saying that there's none of that's a nice clean count, it should be within 3 or 4 hours, I would think, and even less for the smaller ones.
Okay.
But mindful that it's the provisional. Huh?
Right.
But at the end of the evening, it's provisional until after the pre-poll and the postal are counted, and then that's going to take a couple of days, 2-3 days, before the final official results are mentioned.
Yes, the final results could take. Originally, it was hoped it might be in a couple of days only, but it's more likely to be 3 or 4 days. So that if with the elections being on the 17th, it's unlikely, I would think, to have any the final results out before the weekend, on the Saturday or Sunday. Okay. We would certainly not want it to go longer, but it depends. This is the first time it's been done in this way, so we'll have to see experience. It's not something you can practice. Experience will tell us. But I would say that 3 or 4 days is to be expected, the actual final results. But on the night itself, the supervisor will conduct a provisional count, and by the morning of the 18th, he'll call that a day. That we've done that, and this is just to give people a general idea of how things are going.
Okay.
But there'll be no allocation of seats or anything like that until the very end.
Okay. Just the last question before you two leave us for the day. 14 days left till elections. What's the commission working on right now? What's your main focus?
Well, I think our main focus is to work with the Supervisor of Elections to ensure that both postal and pre-polling is going smoothly. With pre-poll, there's a lot of logistical processes involved, and it's going very well. They've got that all under control, and I think we're there to give support, but also there's some work that the Commission has to also do, and that we're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Thomas and Father Arms, for coming on the show and for joining us and for clarifying so many things for us. Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best with the upcoming elections. Welcome back to Gold FM Speak Your Mind. In studio now with us is Mr. Rajneel Sharan of Investment Fiji and Mr. Bimlesh Prasad, FMF's Group Export Manager. And they're in studio, and we're going to be talking about the upcoming Prime Minister's Export of the Year Awards. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie.
Mr. Sharan, my first question for you is just simply, tell us something about the 2014 Westpac Prime Minister's Export of the Year Awards.
Thank you, Jackie. The Prime Minister's Westpac Export of the Year Awards is staged annually by Investment Fiji to recognize the contributions that our exporters make towards developing our economy.
Right.
And as you may know that the exporters, they play a very vital role in developing our economy.
Yes,
and our event as such it encourages and enhances our new players. And this year, Investment Fiji, it remarks the 22nd year of exports. And
22 years.
22 years, yes, thank you. And this time, Westpac is our major sponsor.
Right.
And today, I have Mr. Vimlesh Prasad here, who is the Group Exports Manager of FMF Foods Limited. And he's here to tell us more how the Prime Minister's Exporter of the Year Awards has benefited his company after winning this award.
All right. So, Mr. Prasad, tell us a bit about FMF.
Thank you, Jackie. FMF Foods Limited, which was formerly known as Flour Mills of Fiji, was founded in 1973 to mill flour and sharps from wheat. Over the years, the company has expanded not only in range of the products they manufacture, but in the food products as well, such as flour, rice, biscuits, chow noodles, potato dalo, cassava chips, split peas, coconut oil. We have bakery items and as well as cartons as well, which is done by our subsidiary company, Atlantic and Packaging Company Limited. The subsidiaries FMF Foods Limited have is Biscuit Company of Fiji, which is known as BCF, FMF Snacks Limited, ATPAC, which I've just said, Atlantic and Packaging Company, Bakery Company of Fiji, and P Industries. So we distribute to all our stores in Fiji and export to 20 countries outside Fiji.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what motivated your company to join the awards?
Our company has always had the vision to make Fiji and the Pacific less reliant on the overseas food producers. Therefore, applying for this award from the beginning would be a push to the company, brand itself, which is FMF. Right? At the same time, this increases customer awareness, where people will know about our product. From customers' perspective, we have been recognized, guaranteed, and have reliable products, which delights us more and even giving us a personal satisfaction to the customer internally and externally both, and internally a boost in the morale for the company.
So how many times has your company applied for it, and how many times have you won at the awards?
We started in 2001 and to date. So in these 14 years, we have won 3 Prime Minister's Exporter of the Year. That was in 2004, 2011, and 2012. We have 5 larger Exporter of the Year and then 3 Exporter of the Year. So altogether, we can say we have, out of those 14 years, we have won at least 11 times.
And has this helped with, especially with your branding, with your overseas markets, exporting?
Yes.
Has it contributed to that? Has it contributed to the growth of it, like with all these awards?
Yes, it did. What we were doing is 10 years ago, we were exporting 15% of the manufactured goods. Currently, the manufactured goods which is exported have increased to 40%. Yeah, so it has done a great wonders for the company in terms of exporting.
It must make it easier for you as well when you go out and meet with your clients.
Exactly. But Fiji market was saturated in such a way that we had to move out and then explore more markets and distribute more so that we can bring in money into the country and increase the economy.
Okay, so has the company applied for this year's awards?
Yes, we are in the process of applying.
Okay, great. Yes. So they're definitely taking part again this year.
Definitely
looking out for a win again this year?
Hopefully, yeah.
Which award category are you applying for?
At this stage, we are applying for Prime Minister's Exporter of the Year award and these Golden Manufacturing of the Year award.
Okay. So what is the Golden Manufacturer Award? What is that? Is there a...
It is awarded to a company who is doing manufacturing in Fiji. The sponsor for that award is Golden Manufacturers. That's why it is called Golden Manufacturers Manufacturing Exporter of the Year Awards.
So it's but you have different categories.
We are awarding exporters in 12 categories this year, including the main award.
Okay. Well, I'll just hold you there. We'll come back and discuss further on these awards. We're just going to go to a quick break. Stay with us. Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to the show. We're in studio now with Mr. Bimlesh Prasad from FMF, who is the Group Export Manager, and Mr. Rajneel Sharan of Investment Fiji. Now, Mr. Prasad, just going back to you now, what is your ideal company, or what qualities do you think has to be present for a company in order to take part in the Westpac Prime Minister's Exporter of the Year Awards?
Thank you. The ideal company which we recognize is that the qualities should have at least the following qualities, right? It's dynamic in export, manufacturers and distributes world-class products, world-class quality standard procedures followed, and then demonstrates continuous improvement, demonstrate growing market base, and then being innovative, right? And looks after its people very well, and being a corporate citizen, that includes CSR, and work in line with the nation goal.
And this is everything that FMF encompasses.
That's very true.
Now, as a winner, how has this benefited your company in any way whatsoever as a winner of this award?
Exports has grown at a rate of 20%, where we at FMF try to do better every year. And then, as I said, that 10 years back we were doing only 15% of the goods manufactured, and we have increased to 40%. And
that's a huge increase.
To share with you, 40 years ago, flour was the biggest import from Australia, which we were like made flour we were bringing in. Now, not even a single bag is being imported. What we import is the wheat. We import wheat from which we mill flour. And then that same flour is used to make biscuits and then exported to Australia. So just think that what FMF has done for the Fijian economy for the last 40 years.
Definitely.
And we continuously invest in the market. And the main reason for this is we ensure at all times being top of the game, delivering what the world wants.
Well said. Now, Mr. Sharan, we understand that the awards this year has a very interesting theme. Would you like to explain a bit more about that?
Thank you, Jackie. Every year, Investment Fiji develops and we come up with a theme for this event, which defines the essence for the event. This year, our theme is exporting for growth, building our nation, which we feel is an apt given the approach the Fiji government has taken to assist exporters export beyond their traditional markets.
Right.
Which means before we were exporting to like Australia, New Zealand, the Pacific, but recently the companies have entered markets like Europe, Middle East, the Americas, and further in Asia.
Right, right. So where are the awards being held this year?
Yes, Jackie, thank you. This year we are staging it in Sofitel, Fijian Resort and Spa.
Last year it was held at the
Fijian.
Right, so this year you're taking it all the way down to Nandi.
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to advise the public or those who are interested in taking part, where they can collect forms from?
Yes. If you are an exporter, what I suggest is you should apply for this award because never know the Prime Minister can be giving this award by his own hands to you, which is I think is a lot more benefit than any other awards, getting any other awards. And you should apply, and forms can be collected from our website, downloaded from www.investmentfiji.org.fj, or our offices in Suva, which is in level 6 Civic Tower, or in Lotoka, Jailal Complex Company Building, or in Lambasa, Lot 1 Damanu Street.
Right, so there's different categories, right?
Yes.
So it's open to anyone really?
Any exporter. And,
any exporter?
Yes, any
exporter.
At
different levels?
At different levels. It depends on in which category you comply with, which you can apply to. Yes.
Last year, how many exporters did you have in part of the awards? How many people applied for it?
Last year, approx 40 companies applied for it. Yes, at most 40 companies, and
all at different levels.
All at different levels.
Oh, okay.
We had a lot of applications last year.
And how are the applications looking for this year?
It's better than last year, I would say. And we are hoping to get more than 70 or 60 applications for this year because the amount of branding and marketing we do, we will get a lot of.
So Westpac is on as your main sponsors this year.
Sponsor.
Were they sponsors last year, or who was the sponsors?
Last year it was Vodafone and Westpac, but this year it's
solely Westpac
Westpac this year.
Okay, all right. So just another question for you. How many exporters will Investment Fiji be awarding this year?
Yes, we will be awarding in 12 categories, and the main categories are main award category, and there are four categories, which is main general award category, sector-based category, and special award category. This is in the main award category. There is Westpac Prime Minister's Exporter of the Year awards. If I read that out, because it's a huge list here I have, and in general award category,
cut it short if you need to.
Yes. In general award category, we have a Bank of Baroda Small Exporter of the Year awards, Life Insurance Corporation of India Medium Exporter of the Year awards, Home Finance Company Limited Large Exporter of the Year awards. In sector-based category, we have Reserve Bank of Fiji Agriculture Exporter of the Year awards, Hengton Pacific Company Limited Fisheries Exporter of the Year award, Telecom Fiji Limited Information Communication Technology Service Award, Golden Manufacturers Manufacturing Limited Manufacturing Exporter of the Year awards, Tropic Wood Industries Limited Forestry Exporter of the Year awards. And in special award category, we have Technics Pacific Limited Imaging Exporter of the Year award, Bank of South Pacific Import Substitution award, and the new award which we came up this year is for the entrepreneurs, for these youngsters who are emerging, who are coming in this field of exporting. We called it is sponsored by the Ministry of Youth and Sports, and we call it the Ministry of Youth and Sports Youth Entrepreneur Awards.
Wow, that's a lot of awards. So it's, anyone has a chance, really. Any of the exporters has a chance, really, of walking away with a prize.
Very true.
So just to wrap up our show for today, do you have any other comments with regards to the Export of the Year awards?
Mr. Bimlesh?
Yep. Just like for FMF Foods Limited, it just additional information that it also, the products are also licensed under the Fijian Made and True Pacific trademarks. We would like the consumers also to know that the biscuits we make in locally, distribute locally, are exactly the same quality which we export. There's no differences between the biscuit which we distribute locally and export. Local biscuits are better because it's our foundation. And if you have time, I just got a story to share. I would like to share this, like our chairman's philosophy, that is Mr. Harry Punja, with you as well. Like, in his young days, when he was a student in Tasmania in Australia, like where he to be spoken in his university, to be spoken, you have to have that wow factor, or to be the best, so that some people can recognize you to speak only. So that's the same philosophy he applies in his industries as well. That whatever we do, it should be having that wow factor, and it should be the best of all.
And that is why FMF is what it is today.
Yes, and it also reflects the company vision, which is to be the most admired company in the region.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else to say before we go?
Finally, I'd like to thank Mr. Bimlesh Prasad
to
come with me. Surely it's a pleasure meeting you, sir. Thank you for coming and speaking here today. And finally, what I would like to thank is to the listeners. And please, again, I'd like to say that if you are an exporter, please do apply for the award. And this application closes on the 24th of October. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to the both of you for coming on the show today. And that wraps up Speak Your Mind for this week. Join us again next week at the same time. You can catch the Speak Your Mind replay tonight on FBC TV at 10:30 p.m. and again tomorrow at 11 a.m. So until next week, thank you.